Hare Govinda, we have full class over 17, 15 Bhagavad-gita.
Do we have a Bhagavad-gita? Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. We're studying Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter 17, entitled The Divisions of Faith. We're on text 15. It's March 20th, 2022. We're here at Prabhupada House in Melrose, Florida. And this is the Bhakti Yoga Enlightenment program. And okay, so we'll start with the Sanskrit words one at a time responsively. And welcome also to those joining online. Anasuya, Susan, and Fusela family. Hare Krishna. Okay. Anudvega, Karam, Vakyam, Satyam, Priyahitam, Cha, Yat, Svadhyaya Vyasanam, Chaiva, Vanmayam, Tapa, Uchyate, Anudvega Karambakyam, Satyam Priyahitam Chayat, Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva, Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate, Anudvega Karambakyam, Satyam Priyahitam Chayat, Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva, Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate, Anudvega Karambakyam, Satyam Priyahitam Chayat, Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva, Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate,
Anudvegam Karambakyam,
Satyam Priyahitam Chayat,
Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva,
Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva,
Mayam tapa uchyate.
Vanmayam tapauchyate.
Anudvega karam vakyam.
Anudvega karam vakyam. Satyam kriya hitam chayat. Svadhyaya prasanam chaiva. Vanmayam tapauchyate.
Anudvegam karam vakyam.
Anudvegam karam vakyam.
Satyam priya hitam shajat.
Satyam kriya hitam chayat.
Swadhyaya vyasanam chaiva.
Svadhyaya prasanam chaiva.
Vanmayam tapa ushatyate.
Vanmayam tapauchyate.
Anudvega karam vakyam.
Anudvega karam vakyam. Satyam kriya hitam chayat. Svadhyaya prasanam chaiva.
Vanmayam tapauchyaya.
Vanmayam tapauchyate.
Anudvega karam vakyam.
Anudvega karam vakyam.
Satyam priya hitam
Satyam kriya hitam
chayat.
chayat.
Svadhyaya vyasanam chaiva.
Svadhyaya prasanam chaiva.
Vanmayam tapa uchyate.
Vanmayam tapauchyate.
Anudvega karam vakyam.
Anudvega karam vakyam.
Satyam priya hitam chayat.
Satyam kriya hitam chayat.
Svadhyaya vyasanam chaiva.
Svadhyaya prasanam chaiva.
Vanmayam tapauchyate.
Vanmayam tapauchyate. Anudvega,
Anudvega.
not agitating.
Not agitating.
Karam,
Karam.
producing.
Producing.
Vakyam,
Vakyam.
words.
Words.
Satyam,
Satyam.
truthful.
Truthful.
Priya,
Priya.
dear.
Dear.
Hitam,
Hitam.
beneficial.
Beneficial.
Cha,
Cha.
also.
Also.
Yat,
Yat.
which.
Which.
Svadhyaya,
Svadhyaya.
Vedic study.
Vedic study.
Abhyasanam,
Abhyasanam.
practice.
Practice.
Cha,
Cha.
also.
Also.
Eva,
Eva.
certainly.
Certainly.
Vanmayam,
Vanmayam.
of the voice.
Of the voice.
Tapa,
Tapa.
austerity.
Austerity.
Uchyate,
Uchyate.
is said to be.
Is said to be.
Translation. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially, and in avoiding speech that offends. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students. But such a teacher should not speak to others who are not his students if he will agitate their minds. This is penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. Ooh. Okay. When speaking in spiritual circles, one's statements must be upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There is a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called Penance of Speech. Okay. So I'm going to chant a few more mantras to continue to invoke auspiciousness in our gathering, and really, and to invoke the blessings of pure personalities, as this purport says, so that I will not talk nonsense, so that whatever I talk will be aligned with the purport and meaning of Bhagavad-gita. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayarupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Visagan Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Tuyubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyeva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatani Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter 17, text 15. Anudvega karambakyam satyam priyahitam chayat svadhyayam vyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapo uchyate. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially, and in avoiding speech that offends. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. Hare Krishna. Okay, so the first word here in the translation is austerity. Austerity. Okay, so what's austerity mean? Okay, so austerity might not be the most like inviting, warm and fuzzy word, but austerity essentially means giving up some immediate gratification for some longer term fulfillment. That's the essence. Okay, and basically it's known. I mean, sometimes, oh, I don't want to be austere. Well, it doesn't matter what you want, you're going to be austere. So human life means that we're going to do that. Right? And animal life, there's not austerity. Human life, like to do anything. If you want to get a university degree, you want to learn how to be masterful in playing a musical instrument. You want to get good at playing a sport. You want to develop a business. You're going to do austerity. I'm not going to just party every night and just indulge the senses. I'm going to get up early, work at that job, develop that business. I'm going to study, pass those tests. Give up some immediate gratification, trusting that I'm going to have some longer term fulfillment next year or 5 years from now. And so, okay, there's Maharaj Rishabhadev, many eons ago, he was talking to his sons, and he talked about austerity. He said, Nayam deho deham bhajam viloke, kastan kamano hati vid bhujamye. Tapo divyam. Tapo means austerity. Tapo divyam puchakyena sattvam shtyadyasman brahma sakyam tvanantam. He said, really, he said to his sons, because he wanted them to be raised with the highest principles, the highest values. So he said, human life is meant, well, we're going to do austerity whether we like it or not. Everyone is. Human life is meant for consciously, voluntarily doing divine austerity, tapo divyam, for that fulfillment, for that pleasure, for that long-term value and benefit. Tapo sudyadyasmad brahma sakyam tvanantam. That is ever increasing spiritual bliss. Okay, so that's what Bhagavad-gita is directing us towards, to direct our propensity for austerity. And again, it's a distinctively human function, distinctively for spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So essentially, right? So the body's like a car. And so like We are that irreducible quantum of consciousness that inhabits the body, right? And so we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Outside, I heard in the distance some spiritual beings having dog experiences, and their spiritual being having blade of grass experiences. So wherever there's consciousness, wherever there's life, that indicates there's that atomic unit of sentience, this spirit soul that animates the body. So to direct our unavoidable propensity for austerity, for that bliss, for that pleasure, for that satisfaction, that will never be crushed by time, right? Because anything material will be devastated by time, either in a minute, tomorrow, in a year, 10 years, 100 trillion years, even the 100 trillion years scenario. Even that, it's not even a lightning flash compared to the eternal life of the spirit soul. So that's what Bhagavad-gita, and specifically this chapter and this verse, is directing us towards. So speech. Okay, so this verse is talking about speech, and this part of Bhagavad-gita, and in chapter 17 into chapter 18 talks about 20 areas of life, and about like guidelines to do them in such a way where we're actually uplifted. So it's like very practical, philosophical foundation, philosophical container, and very practical guidelines. How to engage. Here it's talking about speech. In another place in this chapter, it talks about charity. In another place, it talks about food. Everyone eats. In another place, it talks about happiness. Everyone's seeking happiness, right? But we have experience. Like we might seek happiness in ways that maybe provide some immediate gratification, but tomorrow more misery than happiness, or next year like that. Okay. So, all right. So this is talking about austerity of speech in the mode of goodness. So the Vedas and Bhagavad-gita describe there are three gunas, three modes of nature, and they permeate everything, from the work we do, to the food we eat, to how we speak, how we listen, how we don't listen, to how we keep our office, every aspect of life. Three gunas. One is tamas, or the mode of inertia. The other is rajas, or the mode of activity, and the other is sattva, or the mode of enlightenment or goodness. Okay, like English words like saint or satisfied come from the Sanskrit sattva. Back in the 1990s, as part of my university PhD program, we developed what's called the Vedic Personality Inventory. It's a personality assessment tool, like the Myers-Briggs or the Minnesota Multiphasic, like that. It's a personality assessment tool based on the psychology from Bhagavad-gita. And the basic assertion or motivation in developing the Vedic Personality Inventory, welcome, good day, is to develop an empiric basis for happiness. Empiric means like, you can measure it. An empiric basis for all those experiences we're looking for steadily. Peace, security, happiness, fulfillment, vitality, like that. So the hypothesis is, as asserted by the Vedas, as confirmed by modern research, to the extent that we develop the sattvic worldviews and habits that will correspond with happiness and joy and fulfillment and completeness and inner peace and vitality. Okay, so this talks about speech. So sattvic speech. Okay, true. So we're not deceptive and we're not lying. We're not committed to falsity. Truth. And beneficial. So austerity. So I know for me, that's an austerity. Okay. Prabhupada says in the purport, besides that, one should not talk nonsense. Well, that's asking a lot, but okay, all right. I mean, I'm ready to follow this, but to not talk nonsense. It's described in the Bhagavatam. Shokta Vyadini Rajendra Nunam Shanti Sasasha Pashatamat Matatvam Griheshu Grihamenina. It describes that people who are not, to the extent that we're not connected with like our natural drive for self-realization, then we're just going to have thousands and thousands of topics to talk about. It's a statement from Shukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. It was thousands of years ago. Apashyatam Matatvam. Yes. So, okay. So the distinctive function of a spiritual, the distinctive opportunity of a spiritual being in the human form is self-realization. To consciously endeavor for self-awareness, for the self to turn towards itself in self-realization, for the self to turn towards source in the spirit of devotion. So this is like the distinctive opportunity in the human form of life. Each species has its special gift and contribution in God's creation. And the special opportunity in the human form is we get to come out of conditioned life. We get to come out of conditioning means falsely accepting something as true that's not true. So it's just a very immediate example we often give. It can be like if I say, so this is because this talks, okay, there's true and beneficial. So if I say, I'm David Wolf, I'm 61 years old, I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So is that true? We might say it's relative truth. Okay. And what's that? Yeah. And we'll really only be satisfied when we're serving absolute truth. Right? Because was I David Wolf from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 1,000 years ago? There wasn't even Philadelphia 1,000 years. Was I David Wolf? Will I be David Wolf 1 trillion years from now? Okay. No, but absolute truth. I'm not this body. I'm eternal spirit soul. I'm a servant of God. Jivara Super Krishna. That's absolute truth. Okay. So when I say it's an austerity, because sometimes just like yeah, I got some. I don't really want to say because I don't want people to be angry with me, so I just won't speak. Okay, and then I feel out of integrity because there was something for me to express and I didn't say it. Okay, there's a distinction. There's a difference between choosing to be silent and not speaking because I'm too scared. Important distinction. Important distinction. Yes, and then actually in the purport to the next verse, I'll just read one line. Prabhupada writes, silence means that one is always thinking of realization. Okay, so that's a sattvic, that's a spiritual silence. Right? Silence is not just like a mechanical. True silence means one's always thinking of self-realization. True silence is not just I won't make any vibration with my tongue and lips. There's in January 1977, Yogi Amrit Desai, who now has his ashram in the Ocala area, he lived in Alachua back in the early 90s. He established the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health in Pennsylvania back in the 70s, and now it's based in Massachusetts. So Yogi Amrit Desai visited A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in Bombay, January 1977. Yogi Amrit Desai was like young man at the time, young yogi. Prabhupada was in his 80s. So they were talking. It's a recorded conversation, long conversation. And at one point, Yogi Amrit Desai talks about his guru, Kripaluvanandi, something like that. And anyhow, so Yogi Amrit Desai said that his guru, at one point in his life, he did part of his sadhana. He did a vow, a Marnavrat. Marnavrat means a vow of silence. He did a vow of silence for 12 years. Vow of silence for 12 years. So as soon as Prabhupada heard that, he said, oh, he didn't chant? And Yogi Amrit Desai immediately said, oh, of course he chanted. So I found a very sweet exchange. So they both, and they both understood that to chant the names of God, to chant any name of God in any language, any bona fide name, to chant the names of God, it's not a violation of a vow of silence. It's the fulfillment of a vow of silence. Right? It's the fulfillment of self-realization, realizing who we are, realizing the very source of our, realizing who we are as conscious and consciousness, and realizing the source of our very consciousness. So it can be easy to just, oh, I'm too scared to speak. It can also be fairly easy to go, oh, speak truthfully. Here's the truth. Here's the truth. Right at you, in your face. Here's the truth. But here now it's been said, no. Sattvic, conscious, purposeful speech. It's truthful. We're not withholding the truth. And it's also beneficial. So I know for me, that requires like going deep in myself to be courageous enough to speak in such a way where I'm giving my 100% sincere best effort, that this is truly going to be beneficial. It's going to be win-win. It's going to be win-win for everyone, not just in the name of truth. I'm like, I'm in the name of truth, I'm taking out my unhealed wounds on you. Here's the truth. See if you can take it. But in the name of truth, I'm not building walls. I'm actually opening windows to self-discovery, opening windows to self-discovery. So that in speaking the truth, so-called truth, in speaking real truth, to what extent are we creating true education, illumination? To what extent might we be creating alienation because of our consciousness, because of where we're coming from? So, yeah, so truthful and beneficial. I know that requires like really doing that, because of the mind and the voice. Vacho vegam, manasa proto vegam, jiva vegam, udara pasta vegam. It describes that if one describes qualities, if one truly wants to be a spiritual leader, a spiritual inspiration, it starts just where this verse starts. Vacho vegam. It's like, Vakyam, vacho, same word. It starts with control of speech. That my speech, it doesn't mean control doesn't mean I'm stifled because I'm too scared to speak, but neither am I just blah, 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 blah. I'm using the power of speech for truly beneficial purposes, to deconstruct that, to demystify that a bit. And that relates to where the verse goes. Okay, avoiding speech of offense means that it doesn't mean like, oh, I don't want anyone to be upset, so I won't say anything. No, we might say things that are unpleasant. Truth is also often unpleasant, to the extent that we and others, to the extent that we're committed to deception. Truth is unpleasant, and I'm going to communicate it boldly, courageously, and in a way where I'm not unpleasant. At least that's what we aspire for. Communicate in a way where I'm not obnoxious or arrogant. Okay. It might be unpleasant to hear, but I'm communicating in a way where I'm doing my best, where I'm really coming from a caring place. I'm not just trying to put you down so you feel bad about yourself. Then in a shadow way, I get to feel good about myself. Okay, then it goes on. And one should also recite the Vedas regularly. So what are these Vedas? So Veda means knowledge. Essentially, Veda is not essentially just like this book. It was once so I think it was late 60s lecture in Montreal. And Prabhupada spoke, gave a lecture, and then Prabhupada asked, someone asked him, what about Joan of Arc? He was Prabhupada was talking about Bhagavad-gita. So what about Joan of Arc? Prabhupada said, Joan of Arc, she is also Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? So it's not a sectarian thing. So she wrote Joan of Arc. She is also Vedas, right? She's a pure devotee of God. Prabhupada said. I think he surprised them because they were hoping to get into some sort of sectarian debate or something like that, right? So actually, there are ancient Vedas in all fields of human endeavor. There are Vedas about astronomy and Vedas about the art of dance and military science. There are Vedas that describe how to calculate time, with the fundamental unit of time being the time it takes for the sun to traverse the width of one atom. And there are Vedas on all fields of human endeavor. And 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 the purpose of the Vedas is this self-realization, Krishna consciousness. And so right, so to be beneficial means that we actually have realized knowledge. Gyan, theoretical knowledge, and Vigyan, realized knowledge. Gnanam Vigyanam Sahitam Yajgatva Mokshase Subhat. We actually have realized knowledge to share. So it is said, common sense, people don't care what you know till they know that you care. So maybe even if we have knowledge, but like, that's the thing. That's the thing, like oftentimes, even in a first meeting, Prabhupada would be like so challenging and so heavy, even confrontive in what he shared. And people wouldn't always agree. And sometimes they'd be unsettled, but they wouldn't take offense at him because they got like even though I just met this person, I got he's got some purity. He really cares. Okay. And that's where oftentimes a great way to show that we care, is that before sharing what we want to share, we show understanding of your point of view. Paul Tillich, the Christian philosopher, said the first duty of love is to listen, to show understanding of your point of view. You've understood what I'm saying, my emotions, my feelings. I'm probably going to be more open to hear your point of view, your perspective, your philosophical perspective, like that. So so Veda means knowledge, and so that our speech, our speech is, it talks about the quality of it, truthful, beneficial, and it's filled with absolute knowledge, so that by our very presence, we are and we become a touchstone for spiritual transformation. Okay, just like just like there's okay, so that our speech or our silence, it's truly moving ourselves and others. It's creating value in a substantial, enduring way, again, in a way that will never be crushed by time. Like, okay, earlier in Bhagavad-gita, it's described, Vijavinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Cheva Swapakicha Pandita Samadarshi. So that verse says that a true sage, a humble, spiritually realized person, the humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned person, a person who's in the dregs of society, a cow, a dog, an elephant. What? Okay, because we're seeing that we're seeing. Okay, these are just the external bodies, just like. Okay, someone might be driving a compact, someone might be driving a luxury vehicle, someone might be driving an army tank, someone might be driving a mid-size, someone might be driving a vehicle made in Japan or France or America. But we see with knowledge, we go, okay, but the drivers are all equal. Someone might have a bigger car or a smaller car. So these bodies are like cars. Okay. So this is important knowledge. So to what extent is our speech, is our presence, is it moving people? Is it moving ourselves and others? Whether we're telling a joke, we're having a sober conversation. No, to what extent is our vibration, including our words, moving and inspiring people to this real knowledge, not just data, not just information. Okay, and it's vital. Yeah, it's vital that right, because that, because like to the extent this knowledge is missing, well, that's the cause of conflict and anxiety and war. Actually, there's research, well, just in linguistics, there's many tribes in different parts of the world, and the word they use for members of their own tribe, the word they use translates as the real people. So there are many tribes. I'm going to say it again because I get some look of perplexity. There are many tribes around the globe, and the word that they use to refer to persons of their own tribe translates in their language as the real people. Don't, we're not pointing finger at tribes. We're all doing that, right? Because to the extent that we're not getting this knowledge, truly equal vision, seeing the material body and the spirit soul. Spirit, we're all yeah, we're eternal individuals, but we're all made of the same stuff. We're all spirit. It's not like there's a different quality of soul in someone of this color or this gender, just like there's, you know, the driver is the same in a mini compact or in a luxury sedan. Okay. So we get it, right? So it's just like, okay, the real people are my tribe. Mm-hmm. So then that allows me to dehumanize the other tribe. The real people are people who belong to this gender. We all know that. It means the other gender, not really people. Okay, so we just use the tribal linguistics to see what we're all, that's material consciousness. Jivo jivasi jivanam, we're one living entity's food for another. The real people are the one who are in this clique, the ones who are in this group, the ones who are on this side of the fence, right? That we get. This is what all the petty conflicts are about. This is what Ukraine and Russia is about. We get that? So look, this isn't just abstract philosophy. Okay. So then, but then to the extent that we realize, we're all spirit souls, part and parcel of the supreme consciousness, the supreme personality of Godhead. Right? So to what extent is our speech real? That's what beneficial really means. That's what beneficial really means. Okay. And that's what, so this is looking at all areas of life, and seeing how we can truly be beneficial. Also in this chapter, later in this chapter, it talks about like charity. Okay, yeah, well, it's just like it's a human propensity to do austerity. We won't get away from doing austerity. It's a human propensity to give charity. Everyone likes to give charity. Everyone likes to give to a good cause. All right, but then this gives like guidelines, knowledge, how to truly, because yeah, I want to give. So, there's someone on the street and I'll give him money. Nice. Maybe I'm not saying don't do that, but let's just like carry it through so we get the philosophical principle. So then, okay, I gave him money. I'm a good person. I'm at home telling myself what a good person I am. Now, let's say he uses that money, gets some crack cocaine, goes to the high school and deals it to the teenagers. So did I do a good thing? Did I not do a good thing? Okay. Highly questionable. I know when I was in the Middle East, when I was in Israel, I was there for like 8 years, 80s and early 90s. And so sometimes we would say like, okay, we would have these philosophical discussions, very philosophical people. And I don't want to overly generalize, but generally speaking, okay. So they're known as the people of the book. And so, but then I would say, okay, so let's say someone has money and he uses money to open a hospital, to heal sick people. Is that a good thing? Well, yeah, that's a good thing to do with money. Like better than just like buying another yacht or something. Sure. Okay, great. Now let's say that hospital happens to be in downtown Beirut, and they specialize in like treating terrorists or freedom fighters to heal them, get them back on the job. Is it good? No, that's a terrible thing. But wait, I'm confused. You just said it's good. Okay, so that's material life. That's duality, relative, good and bad, based on enemies and friends, based on not realizing who we are as eternal spirit souls. So Bhagavad-gita gives us guidelines for sattvic behavior and behavior principles that are even more pure than sattva. So to train us in all areas of life, whether it's speech, charity, seeking happiness, seeking knowledge, austerities we do, to train us to direct those natural propensities for service, for knowledge, in such a way where, to use an analogy, where we're watering the root of the tree. If we get that analogy, it's like if I water the root of the tree, all the branches, twigs, and leaves get nourished and nurtured, right? So metaphorically, take it out of the metaphor, means all of the species, all of the races, all of the nationalities. Okay, so it's not a sectarian thing, and so it says, one should also recite the Vedas regularly. That's what we're doing here. The Bhagavad-gita, this is like summary, essence, synopsis of the essential Vedic principles, Bhagavad-gita. The sequel to this is called Srimad Bhagavatam. Those sets of books are there. And then recite the Veda. That means like we're absorbed in this transcendental knowledge, so that wherever we go, just like sometimes they would describe about Srila Prabhupada, like sometimes someone, he wouldn't even speak. They said, I just saw Srila Prabhupada. I just saw the way he drank a glass of water, and like my life was changed. Right? So we're so absorbed in not just the philosophy, but living the philosophy. We're living the philosophy, and then we're so absorbed in realization that we're a touchstone for true benefit, for true transformation of, because Dvayam Dvitiya Vidiveshatasya, the root cause of all anxiety for everyone here, the root cause of all anxiety is misidentification of the eternal self with the temporary material body. Very simple. So transformation from that fear-based existence to the actual joyful existence of the self alive in self-realization and God realization. So this is a very practical process to do that. So reciting the Vedas, it's not intrinsically about a book. At the same time, we can consider, it says, when speaking in spiritual circles, one's statements must be upheld by scripture. We can also consider, as part of our absorption and knowledge, to, might not be a particularly appealing word. Let's memorize some of these texts, so that if not memorize, but that we have it at our fingertips. Because one thing we say, like, I got those books, kind of like I got it in the bank account. But it's one thing to have the money in the bank account. It's another thing to have it right in my pocket. Somehow that analogy came to me. Okay, right? So that, like, so that in any conversation at our fingertips, we're able to connect the subject matter to eternal, absolute, spiritually transformational knowledge, that we have it at our fingertips. And that, it can come in many ways. It doesn't need to come from reading books, but reading Prabhupada's books is definitely one great way to transform our experience from matter to spirit. Okay, I'll read this verse again. Text 15, chapter 17, Bhagavad-gita. Anudvega karamba yam satyam priya hitam chayat svadhyaya vyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchyate. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially, and in avoiding speech that offends. one should also recite the Vedas regularly. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for your presence. Thanks for your sincerity and enthusiasm for hearing Bhagavad-gita. I welcome any comments, realizations, inspirations, questions at this time.
Does
Good. I like eagerness. Yes, sir.
does the Vedas say how, you gave the example of giving to a hospital that heals terrorists. Does the Veda give, other than listen to your inner wisdom, how to know how to give to good, what's a good choice of charity? Other than to listen and be established in that, is there some other thing it says?
It does.
And
Yeah.
what would that be?
Okay, sure. Well, in one sense, it does give guidelines. And those guidelines are meant to support us to connect with the higher guidance within. The Vedas term that the Paramatma, or the super soul. So just like here, and so all knowledge is within. At the same time, we can connect with external sources that remind us and connect us with that knowledge within. So like here, okay, to speak truthfully and beneficially. Well, in one sense, we all know that's kind of that's a very valuable principle. But I know for myself, the past 45 minutes, I'm more deeply connected with that knowledge within. So sure, the Vedas give us science to endeavor, to aspire, to give charity, to fulfill that propensity by giving two things, two principles. One is the object to who we're given, and to be conscious and responsible. What are they going to do with the resources? What are they going to do something tamasic or rajasic? I mean, the lower modes of nature, with probably in the name of good, it'll just do more harm than good. Or will they do something sattvic? Will they do something sattvic? Will they do something that's genuinely, not pretentiously, genuinely service to the root of the tree? Okay, yeah, will they do, if I'm giving to a person or an organization, will they do something that's truly going to be uplifting for all? And it's a whole science to assess that. So one thing is, what will they do with it? And the other thing in giving charity, what's my consciousness in giving? But let's say even if I wanted to give to, let's say, Prabhupada House in Melrose. Okay. No, so this is more than a good cause. This is above good. This is transcendental. Okay. If I want to give Prabhupada House in Melrose, so that's a good cause completely. Okay. Now let's say in giving, I do like, okay, here, you want some money, take some money. Yeah, I guess if you're not going to get a job, take some money. I have this very offensive attitude, right? Very insulting, offensive attitude, as opposed to, wow, I'm honored because this money, it doesn't belong to me. This is God's money, and I'm the steward of the resources. I am so honored. I'm so blessed to get to contribute to such a wonderful project. So I have a very humble, devotional, appreciative attitude in the giving. So those are the two principles. What's my consciousness in giving? And the same way, I could have a very appreciative attitude and humble, and I'm giving to the crack addict on the street. Well, that doesn't work either. So both. Let me be conscious and responsive who I'm giving to, and what effect, what they're going to do with it, what effect that'll have on society, and what's my consciousness in giving. Both principles. Thank you, sir.
Makes sense.
I appreciate your question and the discussion.
Thank you.
Reciting Vedic literature, sometimes when I read that, I feel pressures that it needs to be Sanskrit verses.
You're asking?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like I can see like people when they quote the Bible.
Yeah.
Some people they say, oh, in the Bible, such and such is there.
Yeah.
And some people they say verse, Matthew 9,
Yeah.
30.
Right.
And it's but the verse word for word, but and you were speaking about bringing that from our pocket, and yeah, that's what I was contemplating.
Okay. Thank you, Melanie. Okay. So no, it doesn't need to be Sanskrit verses. Like here, we read Prabhupada's English. That is Vedic. At the same time, I know for me, the past almost 40 years, it has been a structure that has been very helpful for me. I know, like when I'm learning or I'm quoting Sanskrit verses, it's calming. It's calming. I'm also the English, but I'm saying so the answer is no, it doesn't need to be Sanskrit verses. And at the same time, let's not reject that process of learning Sanskrit verses, that they're authoritative and it's purifying to learn and recite and repeat and share. So it doesn't have to be, not like you won't make spiritual progress, you won't go back to Godhead if you don't memorize so many Sanskrit verses. That's at the same time, it is part of the process that Prabhupada gave us. In fact, even at the beginning of this discussion, we quoted the Sanskrit and we recited, and then some of you recited the Sanskrit, we all followed. So Prabhupada didn't do that at first. At first, when he, in New York, his first center in 1966, he would simply read himself. Maybe he would recite Sanskrit. Then starting in Los Angeles, then he started drilling them. Okay, now I want you to recite, because he could see it's going to be helpful for you to control your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not neglect that. But no, it's not necessary.
So in the part of the purport, Roshia Prabhupada said we should be able to quote the Veda. It doesn't necessarily mean that to quote Sanskrit verse or even the reference exact, but to quote the knowledge of the Veda.
Essentially, it means to quote and represent the essential knowledge of the Vedas. That's what it means essentially. And I know for myself, it's helpful for me to represent the essential knowledge. It's a helpful practice to sometimes get it verbatim in Sanskrit and English.
The verbatim is English too.
Yeah, it supports me to connect with the essence. We don't want to miss the forest for the trees. And I memorize this, I memorize that. And then just in my character, I'm not living the verse, but I memorize it. So we don't want to miss the forest for the trees. At the same time, doing those externals can be helpful to connect with the essence. Thank you, Melanie. Vishwambar?
No, it didn't have
It didn't have.
question.
Ladini?
Yes, I wanted to share my dream. A few nights ago I dreamed about being in prison because my mind is full of war and stuff.
Yeah.
And in the prison I had my main thought process was so much regret that I didn't memorize verses,
Okay.
Why did I do it? It was so much I woke up, I was I'm going to memorize the whole Bhagavad-gita, but then it's a few days ago and I didn't really get into it, and it's fading. But it came when you spoke about that. And then I have a question about the Prabhupada says silence. When we're silent, it's always thinking of self-realization. So that for me is what does it mean by that? And then also the pleasing, the speaking should be pleasing. So
Pleasing.
I also would like to hear more about that pleasing.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. That's a very powerful dream. to hear the dream is very powerful. So it's about war scenarios, and then your regret was I didn't learn more verses. I'm reminded the 8th canto and the Gajendra. Gajendra, he was a pure devotee, spirit soul, highly advanced devotee in the form of an elephant, and he was being attacked by a crocodile. And generally, elephants would defeat crocodiles, but they were fighting in the water, which is the home turf of the crocodile. So the elephant was getting weaker and weaker, and he was gone down. And then he's like in desperation, he calls out to the Supreme. And then verses from a previous life came up for him. Yeah. I'm reminded also here at Prabhupada House, we did recent months, Lakshmi Priya, Anasuya, they've instituted, you give out these little cards with the verse. It says I give you like one verse per month. And 1 verse per month. Well, that means after a year, I'll have 12 verses. After, okay. And again, it's not about collection, it's not about numbers, but it's about like, it's a method for purifying the consciousness. Everyone, no one can say, I don't know any verses, because here's a Vedic verse, everyone knows. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's described in the Upanishad, Dishadashakam Nam Nam Kalikamashanashanam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This particular mantra, this particular verse, to chant that as much as possible is especially recommended for self-realization in this age. And self-realization is important, to put it mildly. Right? Like if I'm, to use that analogy, if I'm thinking I'm the car, I can take care of the car, but I don't feed the driver. The driver doesn't get water or doesn't get clean. Well, but I took care of the car. I got it in a car wash and filled it with gas. Well, then we just shrivel up and die. So similarly, this body is a car. We don't want to neglect it. But what's nourishment for the soul? What's nurturing for the soul? So that's this process of bhakti yoga. And the foundation nourishment is chanting this mantra. All right, so pleasing. Well, I think I touched on, like, well, like with Srila Prabhupada's example, right? He would often be, even with like, he would be so heavy and confrontive and challenging. And I've just read just like thousands and thousands of pages of his conversations and lectures and questions and responses, and letters. But like, no one took offense at him personally, right? Like me, like I can even like try to be careful what I say, like people are disturbed and annoyed. Okay. So, but like he wasn't like trying to get approval. He clearly didn't care about that, right? But like, so he could just like bold truth consistently, and truth that was unsettling, unpleasant, uncomfortable to hear, and he's not unpleasant. He's pleasant. He's pleasing. So there's one way in which he's an acharya. Okay, and so we want to practice that, right? Bold, courageous, and simultaneously pleasing, considerate, empathic, truly caring. We practice because we're not good at it. I'm not good at it. So we want to practice it, and like it's not artificial. It's not artificial, but by practicing, we develop higher and higher modes. Because basically, this is sattva or Shuddha sattva. In sattva, we're courageous, powerful, and simultaneously pleasing, empathic, and people get, you really care about me. So we can practice sattvic speech.
Like Lord Chaitanya also.
Lord Chaitanya also.
Thank you.
And silent, the next verse is that sentence I mentioned. Silence means that one is always thinking of self-realization. Well, I'm not going to claim I have deep understanding what Prabhupada means, but whatever understanding I have, because we can think of silence as just a superficial external thing. But that's, it's yeah, like if the car is turned off, it's silent, but it's just a machine. But Prabhupada's getting the essence of the principle of silence. The essence of the principle of silence is we don't speak nonsense. That's what this verse says, right? That we're not vibrating nonsense. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. And so, and there's no neutral. There's no neutral. There's either nonsense going on mentally or vocally, or there's self-realization going on. It means we're absorbed. We're truly absorbed in how to do the highest good for myself and others. True compassion, not in a sentimental way, but with knowledge. We gave the example, Vijayvinaya Sampane. How can I might be in silence, but how can I create value in this situation? How can I create value in terms of self-realization, supporting everyone involved to fuller realization to who you are as eternal, blissful spirit, soul, detachment from body. So and if my vibration is consistent with that self-realization service, that's material silence, right? That's silence. So that's my understanding. Thank you, Ladini. Tyler.
Can you speak a little about the process of going from speaking pure nonsense to this goal of, austere speech? Because I find, that's where I'm at. It's like in the middle. And, like with my family, for example, I've practiced, maybe with my nephew, like he might misbehave, and in the past, maybe I wouldn't say something because it's uncomfortable. And then I start, okay, I'm not gonna let my fear rule me, so I'm gonna say something, try to be helpful.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes it can come out stern or something like that. So that's an example. But but I found that like it comes out sloppy, right? When I try to make a correction, it comes out messy, and it's like, oh, was I better off just being that mechanically silent person? So just anything that you could share along those lines of like the process, like guidelines, or that would be really helpful and appreciated.
Thanks for your question, Tyler. Yeah, well, I certainly saw you, in some respects, you responded to your own question effectively. Like you said, like in a sense, you practiced with your nephew, and it felt awkward and clumsy. You might give yourself a 4 out of 10, not a very high grade. And you're familiar with like our Safato program. We focus a lot on transformation through sound vibration. That's what this verse is all about: transformation through sound vibration. And so, we have things like assertiveness as distinct from passivity or aggressiveness. We have techniques like the win strategy. So whether in seminars or in coaching, we'll have okay, so we practice. We're practicing reflective listening, or like that. And so, this is clumsy. This is clumsy. Right? So an analogy I'll borrow from Marie. I got this one from you. Just okay, so let's say I'm learning to ride a bike, just learning. So I'm going to go to this destination 3 miles away. So again, I fall, and I go another 100 yards. I topple again, I fall again. It would be easier, I just walk. And it would be, because that is true. It would be easier if I just walk. But, okay, if I practice the bike, say I practice another 5 days, 2 weeks. Okay, now I'm not falling. Now it's actually easier to take the bike to that 3 mile destination compared to walking. So similarly with the sattvic communication, can feel clumsy. It is clumsy. And it might be just, let me just take the path of the least resistance and just mechanically be silent, do nothing. But we practice, and then in April, now I scored a 4.5. Still not too exciting, but I say if I keep practicing this sattvic communication, I'll come up to a 7. That was smooth. That was actually life enriching. So through practice, and that means austerity of getting it wrong and appearing foolish. And that's an austerity. And then That relates in a sense to the sattvic aspect, let's say. And then also, I would say to the transcendental, because this whole chapter is about cultivate sattva, but that's not the ultimate goal. Cultivate sattva as a platform for transcendence, especially the final verse of this chapter is like, okay, even if you're not real sattvic in your speech or your charity or your austerity, okay, but from wherever you're at, from wherever you're at, practice Krishna consciousness now.
Yes.
Yeah. So not to neglect the cultivation of stuff. So as far as the transcendental aspect, well, I observe myself in Prabhupada's books, especially Prabhupada's books, discussions like this, read Prabhupada's books, read Prabhupada's lectures, letters, hear Prabhupada's lectures, read Prabhupada's books. Then I find, to the extent that I did, and I found this consistently over about 40 years now, then it can be a conversation or whatever mundane topic. And then to the extent that I'm observing in Prabhupada's vibration, I find ways to organically connect it with the transcendental objective, with self-realization and Krishna consciousness. And it might be through, or maybe someone we might be talking about food, or people heard of karma or yoga, people just talking about their work. But to the extent that I'm absorbed in this, then I find ways in any conversation on any topic to connect it with Krishna. So increase our absorption. Thank you, Tyler. And welcome. Any other questions or comments? Well, so we use this term transformation through sound vibration. We started our program, about an hour, 40 minutes ago with Marie Malini, leading us in a process for transformation through sound vibration called Kirtan. And this Bhagavad-gita, this is also Kirtan in a different form. I'll close by, I'll mention that after Bhagavad-gita, which we'll close in a moment, since we're complete with questions and discussion, then we'll go to another form of mantra yoga called japa. Bhagavad-gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so for those so we'll do japa, then kirtan, and then prasadam, which is sanctified transcendental vegetarian feast. Okay.
Jai, jai, jai.
Jai. For all of them. Okay, so so for those who would like to participate in the japa experience, and I'll explain how to do it for those who might be new to the process, let's distribute japa beads for those who would like to participate. I'll take one of those. Thank you. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. So, Lakshmi Priya, as far as you're aware, is anyone outside who might want to participate in the japa part? No?
There are some people out here that
Okay.
tune in out here.
All right. All right. So this japa, it's a meditation process. It's a meditation process, mantra meditation, just like there's silent meditation. The essential principle of any meditation process is that the more senses engage in a process, the easier it is for the mind to focus. Even like a multimedia presentation, the idea is, engage the sight. So with this mantra meditation, it's not a process of elimination, it's a process of positively engaging the senses in spirituality, in a spiritual way. So we're engaging the sense of speech, the sense of hearing. When we use japa, the sense of touch. So to chant mantra japa, it's generally recommended to use the right hand, thumb, and middle finger, and to start with the bead next to the large bead. By large bead, I mean the bead with the tassel. So to hold the bead next to the bead with the tassel, with thumb and middle finger of right hand. And on that bead, chant one mantra. The Maha Mantra is given on that big sign up there on top of the bookcase. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then move to the second bead away from the large bead. And on that bead, chant one Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then move to the third bead next to the large bead, away from the large bead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The basic simple process is to chant each word of the mantra. There's 16 words in the mantra. Really, though, it's composed of 3 words formed as a 16-word mantra. To chant each word of the mantra and do our best to focus our hearing, consciousness, and mind on each word of the mantra, and to be present with our experience. If our mind wanders, which mine always does, you know, I've been practicing like 40 years. If our mind wanders, simply notice that, and then bring our power of hearing back to the vibration of each word of the mantra, and notice our experience. This mantra, it's 3 words. Each word is a name for the absolute. And okay, so let's start with the first bead next to the large bead, and we'll chant 1 round. 1 round is 108 beads, meaning not including the bead with the tassel. There are 108 beads on the strand. It's generally recommended not to chant on or over the bead with the tassel. And so this is a form of yoga. A lot of people are familiar with the physical yoga. So yoga, like the English word to yoke, comes from the Sanskrit yoga. Yoga means to connect in its essential form. Yoga means the self connecting with itself in self-awareness, the self connecting with the ultimate in a spirit of devotion. So this is yoga through sound vibration. It's the yoga of communication, we might say. Okay, so let's start with the first bead next to the large bead and chant 1 round together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you for chanting Hare Krishna. Would anyone like to share your experience? What you're experiencing now, what you experienced when we were chanting? If anyone would like to share.
Uplifting vibrations.
Uplifting vibrations. Thank you, Vrinda.
Feeling carried by the strength of others.
Carried by the strength of others. Any other sharing, what you're experiencing?
Realizing how I chant too fast and miss it often on my own.
Okay, so like you experience the potency of contrast that in this, because we went slower than usual, then you realize, there's something especially impactful there. Thanks for sharing.
Space.
Safe.
Space.
Space. Space. Thank you. I'm experiencing aliveness and connection with Source.
I feel empty.
Empty.
Purified, clear.
What is that?
Purified and clear.
Empty, purified, clear, like something got cleansed, something got washed out. Thanks for sharing. What's your name, if you want to share?
Shivanti.
Shiva?
Shivanti.
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 Thanks for sharing. Okay, and so, yeah, I know for many of you, this chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra Japa, it's already a part of your daily spiritual practice. You're welcome to keep the beads if you'll use them for chanting. And myself, since about the summer of 1983, back in the summer of 83, I made a vow to chant at least 16 rounds per day. And that's it's the part of myself I'm most satisfied with, that I fulfilled that vow for about 39 years now. And I appreciate every part of my life, and the part of each day I look forward to the most is my time with this mantra. And that, well, for the time itself, again, I also go too fast than that then is conducive for attentiveness. But generally, the 16 rounds takes me about 2 hours. And then to chant at any time is auspicious and cleansing. And I especially recommend if we can chant in the morning, and then when I chant in the morning, then I get like clarity and inspiration how to like respond to the different circumstances and difficulties and disturbances of the day in ways that support inspiration for self-realization in spiritual life. So you can consider chanting 1 round, 5 rounds, making it part of your life if you so choose. We chanted here sitting together in unison. This chanting Hare Krishna practice, it's really an eternal, timeless practice. And it's given in Bhagavad-gita, Satatam Kirtyanto Mam, Yatantas Chadrita Vrata, Namaschantas Tamam Bhaktya Nityayukta Upasate. And the chanting was rejuvenated about 500 years ago by a great spiritual personality named Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Sri Chaitanya, he said about this process of yoga, chanting yoga, Nam namakari bahuda nija sarva shaktis tatrapita niyamita smarane nakala. Etadrashi tavakripa bhagavan mamapi duradevam idrishamahyajanina nuraga. The term nakala means for this particular method of self-realization, chanting Hare Krishna to be effective, there's no rules or regulations. So we can chant sitting, standing, sometimes we walk, and just however we're chanting, just do our best to hear the sound vibration and be with us, be with the mantra. And as we've heard from the sharing, it's a purifying process. And yes, Lady.
Would this regular chanting would be considered regular reciting Vedic literature?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's a definite yes. It's a definite yes. Because so Ladini is referring to the last sentence. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. Chapter 17, text 15. So this is a Vedic mantra, but not just that. All the Vedic mantras, the goal of all Vedic mantras is to chant this mantra: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's true. So, like if we're like 24 hours Kirtanya Sadhari, if we're constantly engaged in chanting Maha Mantra, there's no reason to study any other Vedas because we're fulfilling that line of this verse. We might study other Vedas anyway because it's our service to do so. It might be our service. Like Srila Prabhupada he's completely absorbed in Krishna all the time, and he was the greatest Vedic scholar of his age because that's his service to do so. But there's no need to do anything else because this is the goal. Yes. Yes. Thank you for your enthusiasm for spiritual life. Jai Hare Krishna Maha Mantra ki jai. Hari Nam Sankirtan ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Beautiful outside. Thank you everybody for coming to Prabhupada's house today for our program. And I was thinking we have another kirtan outside, out back. And I don't know if anybody's particularly inspired. There's a lot of devotees in here too, and I'm familiar. So is anybody inspired that wants to volunteer to lead that kirtan, or should I select who I'm thinking about? Anybody feel inspired? Nobody feels inspired?
I think you should volunteer.
Well, I had someone in mind, and Tyler, I was thinking of you actually, because I recall, well, I wasn't until I had turned my round, but then I remembered when we did the, I don't know if we were chanting for Malami, or if it was last year when we did the Holy Festival, Holy Name, and you were on the screen, USO and at it, so I had a vision of you kind of giving us that pleasure if you're feeling inclined. If not, then I'll keep moving.
Tyler.
I'm really honored, and I promised my wife I'd be home by 5. So I'm not sure what time it is now.
It's 10 after 4. You can do a 20-minute kirtan.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
Hare
can get
Krishna.
maybe send him home for shot for your wife.
Hare Krishna.
So we'll just go out back to, there's several doors that go out the back, and then we'll have kirtan out in the backyard, and then I've got some blankets on me out there for y'all to have a seat on the ground, and I'll briefly shot them out. This is your mother, Rupa Manjari. This is Molly.
Yeah.
my mother, Dari, the name.
Hi, Krishna. Very nice to meet you. You
And
should
I'm
work.
from Philadelphia too.
Also, that's it. You're truly connected.
I told her about Sabatove and everything, so many things I've learned over the years.
Where are you visiting from?
California
California.
and the Bay Area. San Francisco.
Thanks for bringing them on.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see you, Vishnu.
Yeah, likewise.
I'll come outside soon. What's that?
I stay away. I don't have energy. Maybe your time to get with me.
Yeah, as far as the numbers, I guess there were about 15 altogether. But on the list were also the Brusellas, the Mangums, and Naveen and Manavi.
The Melrose, they left town yesterday.
Oh yeah, so I guess they changed it.
They were supposed to go to also is his birthday, but they changed last
They
week.
changed it. So
And the Fusila babies are still sick.
the Brusellas were online.
Yeah, maybe still feel like they are contagious.
On the list was that Naveen and Manavi. I sent a letter this morning to Teja Prakash. He almost came last month.
If he wants to be at home by 5, he said, or he wants to leave by 5.
Said he wants to be at home, but
We need to leave now.
where does he live?
That's it.
Gainesville, 20 minutes.
Oh, I see.
But last was 40 minutes. Gainesville was 20 minutes. And it was part of it.
Maybe it's not west.
you a question? In the camp, when I spoke, I shared how I felt uncomfortable because that's actually not qualified and person feel like I have nothing to give. I'm so exhausted. We went silent and we didn't respond or acknowledge what I was saying.
Silence means self-realization. I mean, I could have reflected that I heard you. And I couldn't make a reflection, but I heard you. We had that conversation recently. But no, I heard you. You expressed that before. And we went to, if it cleared your service. Go to Prabhupada to get intelligence. But I wasn't meaning to ignore you. I was receiving you in silence. Do you have like a scheduled visit with Shane's doctor soon?
Yeah, it's March.
End of month.
So I have MRI on the 26th. Maybe a visit with doctor. No. I don't remember the date on it. Very soon. I have an MRI, I think very soon. The doctor and it's not with now.
Thursday, Roger. And then you still doing those tests with the agency in Philippines or something?
I did, but it didn't receive my last one. I did one on the 15th of January. It got passed. So I just did it again and discovered that for priority management. There was a wall and so many things. I don't know that. The last result was I wasn't okay. Hopefully this one is going to be the one. But luckily I'm really down.
Yeah, I guess you're struggling to keep some energy.
Yeah, I have more doesn't have to be. I use it in flat. So easy to fix that. I've been like that for a few weeks now. That's a very sheltered when I'm flat. You're very close to
Close to Krishna. That's absolutely good. Suka Manjari, she was from speech into the early 70s or late 60s.
My memory is that Govinda wasn't working.
Yeah.
That Vishwambara was, but she wasn't. That's my memory from when they moved here many, many years ago. And that she became a devotee with a doctor. It would be interesting to know
That is true.
the history. Like Tamar is not, his mother is a devotee, but she's not working.
Maybe they heard of the
Yeah. So I'm not sure. That's my understanding from what they wrote, but maybe my memory is wrong.
Did you hear the name of Shiva something? Yeah. It's right here.
Please, yeah, I am to see.
I think it's yours.